chilling. An invisible army of sleeper agents had just successfully carried out the largest act of foreign sabotage on American soil. Black Tom Island wasn't a natural landmark. It was a jagged landfill jutting out from Jersey City, expanded by the Lehigh Valley Railroad to serve as a massive terminal for the machinery of death. By July 1916, this artificial spit of land was the most important square mile of dirt in America. While the Statue of Liberty stood nearby representing peace, Black Tom was a warehouse for the Great War. On this specific night, the yard was a literal powder keg. Specifically, Johnson Barge number 17 was docked at the pier, loaded with 100,000 pounds of raw TNT and specialized artillery shells. In total, the site held $20 million worth of hardware, equivalent to nearly $500 million today. The security was a facade. The guards on duty were more concerned with the swamp mosquitoes than they were with professional spies. To fight the bugs, they lit smudge pots, open fires in buckets that filled the air with thick, oily smoke. It was a lapse in security that provided the perfect visual cover for an infiltration. This wasn't a random hit. It was orchestrated by a sophisticated spy ring operating directly out of the German embassy. At the top, Ambassador Count von Bernstorff and military attaché Franz von Papen. They didn't send soldiers. They sent a sleeper chemist named Dr. Walter Sheila. Sheila perfected the cigar bomb, a lead tube divided by a thin copper plug. One side held sulfuric acid, the other potassium chlorate. The thickness of that copper disc was the timer. As the acid ate through the metal, the saboteurs could be miles away, establishing their alibis. But the ring was deeper than just fire. In a hidden lab in Maryland, Dr. Anton Dilger was culturing anthrax to infect the very horses being shipped from these docks. This wasn't just an attack. It was a multi-front biological and chemical assault. Midnight. Under the cover of a moonless sky and the drifting smoke of the smudge pots, professional saboteurs Lothar Witzke and Kurt Janke rode into the heart of the depot. They had help from an insider, Michael Christoph, a 23-year-old German-American who knew every blind spot in the yard. They planted the devices among the TNT on Barge 17 and vanished. At 1:45 a.m., the acid finally broke through the copper. A small, intense fire began to spread. If the guards, assuming it was just a smudge pot out of control, hesitated, it was the last mistake they would ever make. 2:08 a.m. The harbor erupted. The blast was the equivalent of a 5.5 magnitude earthquake, felt as far away as Philadelphia. In Times Square, the shockwave shattered multiple windows, raining glass onto the pavement like snow. Red-hot artillery shells rained down like iron hail. Shrapnel pierced the very arm of the Statue of Liberty. If you've ever wondered why the torch has been closed to the public since 1916, this is why. Lady Liberty became a silent casualty of a war America hadn't even joined yet. Most people call this a forgotten tragedy. We call it a warning. If you believe the most important parts of history are the ones they try to bury, hit subscribe to join the Night Shift Chronicles. When the sun rose, the skyline of New York was scarred. The island of Black Tom was replaced by a massive smoldering crater, 375 feet wide and 175 feet deep. The mile-long wooden trestle was vaporized. For 24 hours, it remained a hot zone. Smaller fires continued to cook off unexploded artillery shells, which whistled through the air and landed in suburban backyards across Jersey City. The physical cleanup was a Herculean nightmare. Thousands of tons of blind shells clogged the shipping lanes. Specialized divers had to descend into zero visibility muck to recover live TNT by hand. But while the engineers cleared the steel, the politicians cleared the blame. President Woodrow Wilson knew the truth. British intelligence had already shared intercepts of German cables, but Wilson faced a choice: admit an act of war on American soil, or bury the truth to keep a neutral nation out of the conflict. They chose silence. The official cleanup pointed the finger at the guards and their mosquito-fighting smudge pots. The Lehigh Valley Railroad was fined. The guards were shamed. The German spy rings stayed in the shadows, their cigar bombs recorded as mere negligence. The truth remained submerged for 37 years. It survived the fall of the German Empire, the rise of the Third Reich, and the entirety of World War II. It wasn't until 1953, nearly 4 decades after the fires went out, that the Mixed Claims Commission finally delivered the verdict. West Germany was ordered to pay $50 million in reparations. It was the final acknowledgement that the accident was in fact state-sponsored terror. The perfect crime, finally solved far too late for the victims. Today you can walk across the site of the explosion. It's part of Liberty State Park now, a quiet field where families picnic over the bones of an arsenal. The cleanup was so thorough that the earth has healed. But if you look at the lady in the harbor, she's still carrying the shrapnel. The scar is still there. You just have to know where to look.